I would say that my journey into energy and sustainability is one born from childhood experiences. So I grew up in Nigeria in the 90s where um, small petrol generators were rife. Every household had small petrol generator, or most households. So it was a determinant to whether you were doing well or you weren't. And as a result, people dear to me died from carbon monoxide poisoning from this small petrol generator. So growing up with limited access to electricity and basically just suffering from the energy crisis, not just electricity, because electricity is part of energy, right? Sort of informed my journey. I didn't exactly know what I was going through at that point in time, but I was just so determined to make a change. I was just so determined to take responsibility. Um, and that's essentially how my journey started. So I started to look for solutions, particularly in my undergraduate. I started with speaking. So I joined the Union Campus of Journalists just to put my thoughts to paper and just share what I was going through. And that's how I came in contact with this word for the very first time, well, the phrase climate change for the very first time. And I remember doing the Super Bowl. So what Super Bowl is to those who attended the University of Ibadan is an oratory event. So I I think I was top 50 after delivering my speech, even though I didn't make it, but it gave me more insight to what what I passed through and what it meant globally. And from that day, I started to chart my way with very little experience on how I could solve for my immediate community. So with that, I developed an idea to start a nonprofit, which is Race Africa. And then with Race Africa, with youths, we were able to provide access to electricity to different communities across Nigeria. And I was also able to work in, certain organizations that sort of owned my expertise. I would say that I have over 10 years experience working not just in the electricity domain, particularly with solar PV, but I do a lot of energy transition, energy access. I focus on that as well. And I've also worked across different sectors, so public, private, but ATA-based sectors too as well, like waste management, and now I'm in aerospace. So I think what was really significant for me working with young people at Race Africa was how we're able to humanize energy. Just working with communities without prior access to electricity, designing solutions with them. Solutions such as solar PV microgrids or solar home systems, and that sort of led to impacting over 7,000 beneficiaries across these communities that we deployed in. I also run a startup called Vector Energy, and with the startup, the aim pretty much is to monetize the social and climate impact of basically by placing dirty fuels with clean energy innovations. And the reason why we do that, I mean, it's a startup that has evolved with time. I guess the reason why we do that is because we've noticed with the experience that we've gotten within this emerging markets is that the technology is not the problem, but climate finance, basically the finance to be able to operate and maintain these developments is what is critical to the users, the beneficiaries. So that has also led us to, pivot and evolve our solutions, which I would talk about in a bit if time allows. Yeah, just that. And I think, okay, I remember now, I worked as a chief sustainability officer in a public-private partnership with the Oyo State government in Nigeria, so the state government in Nigeria, where I led the strategic implementation of sustainable waste management services. So basically, helping more people access waste management services and seeing the need to pay for it through some tariff determination plan. And like I said earlier, currently work in aerospace. I work as the sustainability manager, where we define the future of flight. So I'll just stop here, just to, you know, just as some sort of by way of introduction, just to warm up the room here.
No, it sounds really interesting. And I definitely need some time management tips because that's definitely something I struggle with in terms of trying to balance a lot of different things at once.
Yeah.
I'll just pass it over to Cynthia now, who will ask a bit about energy infrastructure. You're on mute, Cynthia.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Deborah, thank you for that introduction. You've already even touched on it, actually. I know you mentioned RIS Africa, and then you mentioned Vector Energy. Are these all like parts of your current role, or are these like extra things you do? Like, is this in relation to what you're doing currently, or is it something you do like on the side?
Yeah, so these are things that I do on the side, right? I like to see myself as a multi-hyphenate person, and that is because I do have a 9 to 5, right? Let me make that clear. And 9 to 5 is, where I spend most of my time in. But I think for me, with how I grew up, I think just grew up as someone that would typically, just rely on 9 to 5, which is fantastic, by the way. But I also think that because I'm that kind of person, I am still cognizant of the things that define my childhood, and I wouldn't want that to happen. I'm cognizant of the things that my community, the issues that my communities are facing, and I think I can deliver more than just having to work within my 9 to 5. So for me, it's a passion that I cannot just let go. I think we, as Nigerians, I'm Nigerian, as Nigerians, we talk about the issue of electricity access, how it's impeding our economies, how it's just affecting the quality of life, right? If I can make the change, I will. And that's what I'm trying to do with Race Africa and Vector Energy. But that doesn't mean that I do not still focus my time, or I'm not still dedicated to my 9 to 5. I just feel like as we can do so many things at the same time, we cannot be put in a box, but we should not allow ourselves to be put in a box and allow, our 9 to 5 to define us, right? We have the ability to deliver way more. So that's my my stance.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I just wanted to like what you do with Reese Africa and Vector Energy, like how do you think is helping like the lives of people? I know that's in Nigeria, right? That's
Yes.
focused in Nigeria. So how does that what solutions are you providing in that space?
Okay, so Race Africa and Vector Energy is some sort of social entrepreneurship for me. And I would say that with Race Africa, it's focusing on communities without prior access to electricity. They cannot afford the capital expenditure for energy infrastructure. They're not connected to the grid, obviously. So they're in need, but they cannot essentially get connected. So what we do in that sense is that we get finance, like through grants, donations, and when we design the solutions with them. So I'll cite an example. The most recent one that we did was in Kaduna, across 5 communities without prior access to electricity. And I think these communities altogether are about 1,500 people. And their stakeholders came together. We asked them certain questions, because obviously if you don't have access to electricity, you wouldn't have access to basic amenities like water. And then we asked them, what would you like? What do you think will make the biggest impact? Right? Said, oh, we need because it's an agrarian community, so we need electricity to be able to, for productive use, to be able to sort out our produce into the night, because when it gets dark for them, so they are not able to, so essentially what that did for them was increase their productivity, and that's what we look forward to. So having to humanize energy for them was the biggest win. Is the biggest win for East Africa, because with looking for finance to sort out the capital expenditure for this sort of communities, they can pay as low as £1, £2 to continually maintain the system, which they've been able to do. And because of my background, it makes design and development easier, because oftentimes than none, you can just say, okay, these communities, they need you obviously can see that they don't have electricity, so what you just do is just package solar systems for them, and then you realize that down the line it doesn't work for them, or they might not know how to use it, but they would say it doesn't work for them. So having to have that proper stakeholder engagement with them to design the system with them, and then use my technical expertise to, alongside others within East Africa, to design the best suite of technologies for such communities is essential. And then to Vector Energy, Vector Energy is a for-profit startup, but we are still very much impact driven. But we started off by providing access to solar powered portable power stations. So not not necessarily solar systems like 100 watts, 50 watts, but a bit higher that could compete with small petrol generators. So we have 300 watts, 600 watts, 1,000 watts equivalent that could easily replace small petrol generators. And the uptake of that solution was remote workers in Nigeria, households, small businesses, micro and nano businesses, which make up a large proportion of businesses in Nigeria, particularly with the fuel subsidy removal. The sort of business model that we design help them uptake it, because they would pay as low as 2,000 naira daily to be able to continue to use the system. And then we also partnered with commercial banks like Sterling Bank and FCMB to help the uptake, right? But eventually we realized that the more strategic business model that allowed them to pay the barest minimum, the less they could afford it, because there was inflation. And so we went back to the drawing board and we said, okay, how can we make solar energy cheaper? Because the technology is not the problem, as you can see, it's access to finance, right? And there are mechanisms out there that could essentially, if you use solar, you can get paid for it. I think the Kyoto Protocol, delving into the clean development mechanisms, all of those bits allows for that, but these funds will not flow to small projects as such. So we went back to the drawing board and started to look at how we could develop technologies that could help harness that funding. And we found that this could be turned into environmental commodities such as carbon credits, RECs, meaning renewable energy credits. But there's a lot of, there's a lot of bad blood around carbon credits,
Yeah.
right? So the issue of transparency, the issue of accountability. So we just walk backwards, basically right to left. What does what do we require to be true, right? To be able to leverage carbon credits for climate finance. And that's how we birthed EcoWise. And we with EcoWise, we're starting with solar mini grids and commercial and CNI solar, so commercial and industrial solar. I think we have about in Nigeria the installed capacity is about, I can't quite remember, well, 208 megawatts, if I remember correctly. So with that installed capacity, we're able to unlock basically $6 million every year upon year, through carbon credits and renewable energy certificates from just using EcoWise, which is a digital monitoring verification and system that allows real-time generation of this credit through a third-party verifier. So we are targeting solar developers to be able to unlock that finance to make solar cheaper to their customers, to their users, and be able to connect more people to solar. So I'll just stop here and we can continue if there are any questions.
Okay, yeah. So I think you have there's a lot that you're involved in, which is quite interesting because you're combining that with your full-time job as a sustainability manager in the Aerospace Technology Institute. And it's also interesting because I'm also Nigerian. And it's interesting to know that I know we have epileptic power supply in Nigeria, but I didn't know that there were some parts that have actually never ever seen light before. And you mentioned in Kaduna you have places like that where they haven't even seen energy or electricity before. So I think it must have been amazing for them to have had the electricity supply through your establishment. Was that solar powered too? Was that something you that was also solar powered and that's currently functional, is working, and they all benefit from that energy supply?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And I think probably your current job here was you're able to gain some expertise from what you're doing here to be able to feed into your other pet projects.
Well, I think it's the opposite. My other pet projects and the expertise I've built has fed
over the years.
Yes, has fed into my role at the ATI, because
it's like the opposite then.
Yes. And that's why I say we should, as professionals, we should no opportunity is small. We should always try to build capacity, because we do not know when that building capacity will pay off, right? So with my cross-sector expertise, I'm able to add more value to my role as sustainability manager. There's a lot of technical expertise involved in the role, but I would say for a fact that it's the reason why I understand so many things. When you talk about finance, sustainable finance, I'm able to, when you talk about research and innovation, when you talk about commercialization, which is, path to commercialization, which is something that data is also, involved in at varying levels, is something I'm able to feed into. When you talk about venture capitalists, right, private investments, it's something that I did not, I learned it from all of this sort of my journey into renewables and just gathering experiences, and I've been able to feed that cross-sector expertise into my current role. So it's the opposite.
Deborah, we just had a few questions on so You talked a lot about your experience, especially with working in Africa. So, what would you say would be your major challenge, especially in implementing these solutions in a developing nation like Nigeria? What would you highlight as your key one? You talked a bit about finance, but I was wondering if there's anything other than that, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that basically you're talking about the challenges, right? Or
Yeah, the challenges.
yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge, which is sort of constant, is overcoming resistance to change. Because naturally people are just resistant to change, whether they're from Nigeria or in the UK or wherever. People are just resistant to change, and um, because this sort of initiatives do not happen in silos, they happen. The impact is much more pronounced when people work together. So it's important that people you provide people with the right information that aligns them with what you intend to achieve, and basically how they perceive the sustainability effort that you are putting in place, or the initiative that you want to encourage. And with that resistance comes the perception to say, oh, if it's anything clean energy or sustainability, it's got to be expensive. No, it's going to be disruptive, or it's not going to match the short-term goals that we have. And I've seen that happen times without number. Particularly, leadership could be hesitant to say, to invest in sustainable technologies, maybe because of the initial capital outlay, or they're not just certain of the long-term benefits. Even with employees too, employees would, if they don't understand it, they will resist it, because they're probably scared that it's going to make them redundant, or it's going to increase their workload, or for whatever reason, right? So that resistance to change is such a big thing. And I've also found out that it's not, with climate change, sustainability, having to communicate sustainability, or just communicate the need for clean energy adoption. It's not about it's not about the lecture. Oh, we're doing this because there is need for urgent climate change. It's not going to change anything. Or saying that it's the right thing to do, it's not going to change anything. So what I've just realized is that you need to show people workings. You need to build a strong business case. You need to quantify it. And that's one of the expertise that you have to build as a professional, sustainability professional, to be able to lead with evidence, to be able to quantify the benefits of the efforts or the initiatives that you are preferring, you're suggesting, or you are proposing, right? And then use like real world examples or case studies to back it, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be, it could be something that an organization has done before, and just using that to measure success and getting people to see the big picture, right? And communication, which is something that we always struggle. Well, I still struggle with, particularly because take for example with the UK, there's a way communication works. It's not exactly direct. There's a lot of diplomacy involved. There's a lot of soft, I don't know how to explain it. There's a soft approach involved, as opposed to Nigeria or working in the US, where things can be a little bit direct. So just having to factor the nuances of these communications when you're communicating the proposed initiatives is such a big deal, and stakeholder management is also very important, because engagement and management in that sense, because for because, as I mentioned earlier, sustainability initiatives don't happen in silos. So you need to involve not just the decision makers, but the people that can advocate for you, right? From the outset, like you need to ensure that these people are owning certain parts within the initiative, proposed initiative, and they are aligning them, to be able to, support and advocate um for your initiative, right? So I think that's that's the most tangible thing that I've had to work with to be able to, deliver this initiative, particularly in a very different terrain where, communication, which is a huge part of having to deliver these initiatives, uh, uh, is very like is key. And then just leveraging your ability to launch small scale pilots, because essentially the organization might not buy into the full picture. It's okay, let's just run a pilot to see how it works, right? Before rolling it company wide. And you can use that pilot success to sort of build momentum and, demonstrate the viability of it. And then just having to educate people, because people don't know what they don't know, right? So taking advantage of um opportunities to organize sessions, just raise awareness, and then drafting like KPIs to be able to monitor, all of this. I think it has really helped me in overcoming challenges, particularly with um the place that I'm coming from, right? Compared to what is the status quo in the UK. So that's how I've been able to um get wins, substantial wins, and just built on it, so to speak.
Yeah, very interesting, especially around resistance to change. I think a lot of Africans definitely relate to that. Moving to Africa or working in Africa, that's definitely something that's quite prevalent. Have you noticed the difference between obviously working in the UK and working in Africa in levels of resistance to change in the Africa versus UK, or has it been quite the same throughout?
No, it's not the same, and I think communication is a big, huge part of it, right? As Africans, we have the tendency to communicate very directly, like we just say it as it is. But in the UK, communication is quite different. You have to say it in a certain way for people, for people to be able to sort of reckon what you're saying, and you leverage that first buy-in to build more. So working in the UK had me on learning certain communication strategies, right? Because it's quite different. I don't know if it's true for anybody, but that's me, right? And this is me that I've also worked in the US, so, and other countries. So I've been able to, weigh um I've been able to weigh the varying communication strategies in sort of these regions with the UK, and it's totally different. So learning and basically adapting is very important.
Thank you, Deborah. For me, as somebody who works in sustainability, I think I can relate to a couple of things you're saying in terms of communication and in terms of convincing people to go for your initiatives. Because I think sometimes with environment and sustainability or energy, I think some people tend to go a bit extreme, and you tend to have people a bit fanatical about it. And it's not, like you said, it's not really, for me, I don't think it's about just saying you're going to change the world. You are, but some people don't care. That's just the truth. Some people really do not care. So you need to show them the numbers. You need to provide a business case, because people listen when you talk about money. People
Mhm.
listen when you provide the data and the numbers. So I think that's very useful for people generally. And recently, I think sustainability is becoming a buzzword. Everybody wants to be in sustainability for some reason. It's becoming, I don't know, like a thing. So for young people that are looking to get into the field, for young people that are trying to get into sustainability, what would be like a top advice for you to give them? What would be something that you share with them that would be able to make them, join the field and help them pursue like a career? Because you've had a successful career up to this point. So any words of wisdom for them?
Well, words of wisdom. I'd say so. Please, by all means, take this. I'm not saying you should take it with a pinch of salt, but this is my own experience, right? If it works for you, fine. If it doesn't, you can always chart your own course, right? But from my experience, here are some of the suggestions as opposed to advice. Here are some, well, okay, advice. I think, like you mentioned, everyone wants to, it seems like everyone wants to get into energy and sustainability because it's it's not a brag. It's just that it is it's the job of the future, right? It's the job of the now and the future. What I'm trying to say in essence is that pursuing a career in energy and sustainability is not only rewarding, right? But it's something that you can essentially bank on. It's a career that you can essentially bank on in the future. And I'm not trying to, take advantage of what's happening to our planet, but we can fix it as, sustainability professionals. So we do have a role to play, right? To the advice, if this is something you really want to do, then I think for you to be able to provide that needed solution, right, you need to understand the big picture. I find out that so many, well, I would, let me not, because I'll be exaggerating now, but a couple of people that I've met say they are into energy and sustainability, but their capacity or the level of expertise that they have is not commensurate. So I think as an energy and sustainability professional, or as a young professional, you should strive to not just understand the big picture, by staying informed, building your expertise, but also build a strong foundation, right? And what I mean by that is developing a solid, whether technical or analytical background, depending on your interest, because again, energy and sustainability is broad, like it's multifaceted, right? Develop that solid background, whether you need to gain certifications or take courses, just make sure that you have developed such background to not just stay competitive, but be able to add value, right? And with the way energy and sustainability is placed, it's not you cannot box yourself in that sense. You have to embrace interdisciplinary learnings. So as a sustainability professional, you know that the work that you are doing also requires collaboration. Basically, how can you explore how energy interacts with public policy, social equity, finance, right? Or how can you leverage your expertise and to basically develop skills like data analysis, match your energy expertise, right? I think it's very important because that way you are complementing your domain expertise to be able to do better, to be able to leverage solutions. And the world is going digital, right? In the era of large language models, AI, ML, imagine what those sort of technologies can do with your domain expertise, your energy and sustainability. And I'll cite an example. So I also within my role at the ATI, I also do draft the. I've also run the internal decarbonization strategy, and that also includes sustainability reporting, right? Normally, you probably do it on Excel, right? Just having to calculate coupon to be on Excel. But I find myself using Python, trying to look at how I can use Python to, make the calculations of the reporting simpler, right? So that I'm able to, crunch time to, and also be way more accurate, right? To be able to report better. So, just having to embrace interdisciplinary learning is key. And I think for me, what also worked is with Risk Africa, it was an opportunity to volunteer and an opportunity to lead, all crunched in one. So I really did learn a lot, just leading Risk Africa. And I would say to young professionals that, seek opportunities for practical experience, whether it's volunteering, whether it's research projects, whether it's joining Energyz and just, energize back rather, and just giving your time, right? You will learn something. You will learn something, especially because, this sort of platforms are, created to engage in this sort of discussion. So it will provide you an opportunity to basically provide you an opportunity on valuable hands-on learning and just engage. Networking is also a critical soft skill that, an energy and sustainability practitioner should be should also include in their portfolio, right? So it's an opportunity to learn that, and find mentors, really, because I think within the UK, another thing that I've realized is that it's not that your work will speak for you, it's actually people speaking for you. So you might know so much, but if there's no one to advocate for you in the room, then it's a problem, or outside the room, it's a problem, right? So it's good that as a young professional, you connect with professionals, organizations, webinars, engagement platforms. I think Energy Institute is a good one. Just basically there's several platforms that you can connect with professionals on and organizations, and just basically seek mentors who can guide you on your career development and help you navigate challenges, because then again there are lots of challenges, and you just need someone to help you, because they might have gone through the same or something similar. And I think the last bit is just having to, I feel like I'm saying this because I'm saying this because I'm an innovator at art, and I think it's really helped me. So as a young professional, I think you should just imbibe the act of innovation and the ability to think creatively, because the energy and sustainability sector is evolving rapidly, and there are basically opportunities for innovation, like whether in energy storage, smart grids, decarbonization, name it. Just stay curious. Just be open to ideas, and leverage that entrepreneurial, acumen, that if you don't have it, you can develop it. You don't have to start. You don't have to have a startup or whatnot. Just be entrepreneurial in your thinking, and consider developing, solutions, either as, working in your 9 to 5 or whatever. Just be very proactive when the opportunity arises, so that it could, give you access to even greater opportunities. And be resilient, be purpose driven, align your career with your values and passion. I think it's easier that way, because it will just give you the resilience to persevere when the going gets tough. Yeah, and finally, focus on impact. Just focus on impact. There is no need trying to, just when you do something that is impactful, and you have people that can advocate for you, I think it just makes everything easier. So yeah, that's my submission.
All right, thank you. Thanks a lot. I think we'll just use the last few minutes and just have a little Q&A, just for in case people have questions they want to ask you personally. So I think Augustine has a question. Augustine, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on,
Yeah,
please.
thank you very much for your insight. Just need to learn and know it all. In that space in which you are regarding minigly, that has been my field for over 5 years as well. But my question goes this way. What do you think or what do you feel make you stand out when you join CPI?
Oh, I can hear him.
Can you
I
hear
think
me?
he said,
Can you repeat the question, Augustine?
Am I
yeah.
audible now?
Yes, we can hear you, but just a bit low. So if you can raise your voice a bit.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better.
Yes, yes.
Oh, Deborah, my question goes this way. Basically, I work with ATI and I would like to ask this question. I don't know if you know the answer, but basically you know the answer. So what do you think you feel make you stand out when you are applying for ATI?
I think, I did ask my my well, not my line manager, the head of my department this question. I did ask him, and the answer he gave was that I was able to see aerospace in with a different perspective, right? In a different light. Because, so let me give you a background of what the ATI is. The ATI is a a research and innovation institute that provides the technology strategy for the UK on aviation, right? And in having to draft the technology strategy for aviation, we also provide funding to aerospace stakeholders to create innovation as a pathway to commercializing it to achieve net zero in aviation. So I think from what you said, with the technology strategy that the ATI has, I was able to, during my interview, I was able to use that information to leverage what I already knew, my expertise, which is pretty much energy and fuels, and define how first how fuels, energy and fuels would play a huge role within aviation, even though I didn't know so much about aviation at that point in time. Second, I was able to leverage my experience, my entrepreneurial experience in, so you've got reports to show that private capital could make a difference. But why are we not taking this information to private investors, private investments, and venture capitalists to understand the opportunities within aviation? Okay, what are the challenges? Is it patient capital that is the challenge? All of these things. It's not something that I that I had to read. I had to do my research to understand how to connect the dots. So I think what made me stand out really was being able to leverage that cross-sector expertise with research, and as I mentioned, just having to develop yourself further, right? Do the needful of reading wide and just connecting the dots when opportunities arise, and thinking creatively to support your motion, because I think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have landed this opportunity.
Right, thank you. Another question as well. Just a question. The first one, basically, you do more of your research work, and I would say maybe you are very sounding when it comes to research. So I believe that's one of the points I would take as my feedback. you also met your supervisor to guide you through on this particular company and how you were able to scale through. So you mentioned Echo Wise and Vector. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Vector.
Vector.
Vector, are they your own startup?
Yeah, so EcoWise is a product of Vector Energy. EcoWise is a patented embedded device that acts as a digital monitoring, reporting, and verification platform. So what that does is that it translates data into verifiable credits. So it's a device and it also has a web app, right? And it eradicates the issue of transparency and accountability for environmental commodities such as carbon credits. I don't know how familiar you are with the carbon credits market. There's been, several discussions of how, take for example, land-based credits, RED Plus, have been falsified and all of that. And that has created some doubts within the use of carbon credits. But then again, carbon credits are a fantastic way to attract climate finance. I think it was this COP at the start of COP. I don't know if you know COP events, the COP event, COP 20, this COP 25, it's 29 currently happening. I think the UN Secretary General on the first day said something about climate finance, how it's not a charity, it's an investment, where it's not optional, it's imperative. So Africa, basically developing countries need to move from aid to trade because the monies that have been promised to ensure climate resilience is probably never going to come. But having to convert carbon credits to some sort of commodity that can be traded could be that investment tool that the Secretary General was referring to. So that's pretty much what EcoWise is.
No, I'm Vector.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Yeah, it's been a wonderful section so far, and we really appreciate as Energize Black members. We are saying a big thank you to you. So I've got one last question from myself, and was inspired from while checking your LinkedIn, right? You mentioned something about writing a book. That's Jemima and the wind turbine, right? And I was inspired about the concept of the book. You said the concept was about practical and relatable way in explaining or educating about energy and climate issue, right? To African children. So the question is, during the time when you faced this challenge, right? Is it safe to call you an environmental activist also, since you were nominated?
I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind.
Yes. So yeah, so during the time you faced some of this challenge, right? How were you able to convince the naysayers of climate action? How were you able to convince them in a practical way for them to be a believer and for them to let them know that these issues are real? How were you able to do that in just one or two words because of our time?
Yeah, just keep doing the work. Just keep doing the work that you need to do. Not everybody would, believe you the first time. You keep doing it until it makes a difference. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think this wrap up the session. You can end the recording now. Thank you. This wrap up the session. Thank you really very much for joining us today, Deborah. And we hope this conversation won't end here. And we hope you're gonna grant our invite again, maybe in the future, or thank you very much.